Oh, Fuad, you have to enable screen sharing for me. Super. I'll start this once you have made your introduction, huh? Can't hear you.
We're streaming live on YouTube as well. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are joining us. Thanks for joining us this wonderful day, and welcome, Christoph, and all other cocoa and chocolate family joining us. I can see that the pace at which people are joining is a bit quick over the past 3 minutes. So what I would suggest, with your permission, is we've got we are 12:34 or 34, I should say, not to make a mistake about the hour, because it differs from wherever we're coming from. So if we could allow some 5, 6 minutes, if that is allowable, for us to have some people joining us, then we can set the introduction in motion. Thank you. Hi, good day, and welcome once again. Um, Dr. Christoph Ramshan, good to have you, and welcome all to this maiden webinar on weather intelligence for cocoa farmers. The objective is to enable access to weather information so as to boost cocoa yields and profits in a fast-changing climate world. This year has been quite catastrophic for some cocoa farmers, looking at how output has dropped significantly on the cocoa market or on the supply side from Ghana and West Africa. So our objective is to use this platform, reached out to farmers and farmer-based organizations to provide them with tools on how to access weather information to inform their farming decisions. My name is Fuad Abubakar Mohammed from Ghana Cocoa Marketing Company. We are doing this in partnership with the World Cocoa Farmers Symposium as well as Meteo Blue. So, Christoph, welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Fuad, for the introduction, and thank you for having me. It's really great to be able to speak here, and I hope it's going to be interesting for our audience.
Right, thank you. So, possibly by way of kickstarting, we would like Christoph to take us through, give a brief introduction of himself beyond his name, and also give us a brief introduction of what Meteo Blue stands for, and to show us why they are capable to provide us this tool to build the capabilities of our farmers. So, Christoph, I hand over the mantle to you.
Okay, thank you. So a few words on myself. I'm one of the co-founders of Meteo Blue. We founded in 2006 and are going strong. My background is actually in geosciences, but I was always interested in weather. And in geosciences, I had to do a lot with modeling. And one of the key questions is always, how do you apply models in a way so that you derive value from it, that it doesn't become an exercise in itself? So Meteo Blue is a very good example of a company who is able to do that. I encourage you to actually, if you can, log in on the site, onto our website, and just follow a little bit along as I'm showing you a few things. So just to frame it and to right at the outset say the key messages that I would like to bring across. Number one, we know climate change is here and that we have to act, and we can act. If we work together, we have the tools to do it. I, of course, want to introduce Meteo Blue as a competent partner with whom you can work, and that will be able to assist you in quite a number of ways. And my appeal is to just, if you haven't already done it, make the first step and then improve, not wait for many, many more things to happen, just to get started with it. Brief intro of the company. We actually have quite a reach. Millions of users daily look at our website, and it's actually quite good to have that because that also is a lot of feedback. If we get it really wrong someplace, we know about it, not only because we do our own analysis, but because our users tell us. Many of our users are closely aligned with weather, not just like whether to take a umbrella out when they go shopping or so. No, it's farmers, sailors, pilots, mountaineers who have been with us for a long time and from whom we have learned and with whom we have developed things together. But we also have quite a few industrial customers. We are in many countries. We are available worldwide. But of course, paying customers are not in every country of the world. We like to see ourselves as an innovative Swiss company, a one-stop shop for high quality worldwide weather and climate data. And we have grown to over 35 employees at this time. This on the left and on the right, both is our website. This looks like an app, but it's actually the website when you look at it on the on a mobile phone. It's a flexible, responsive design. We also have an app, which I'm not going to comment on any further in here, because many of the things that I want to show you really work best in the web application, which you can also look at on a phone. Notice that there are links in here all the time. So if Fuad or the team could maybe post some of the links into the chat to help you. Otherwise, you'd have to just see that you can navigate by looking at the links here on the screen.
Christopher, I'm just posting the link to the website via the chat. So we welcome all to take a look at it while Christopher is proceeding.
So one example here is the first page when you just go to MetiBlue and enter Ofinso as a location near Kumasi in Ghana. And let me just show you what that looks on the website directly. You can see that's a 7-day forecast. It's depicted in a it's quite easy to read form. Probably the first time you look at it, you have to get a bit used to it. But then there's a lot of information on it. I want to call out these little bullseyes here. And they indicate the confidence that we have in the forecast, which is a very important principle for MeteoBlue. We don't claim that we know everything. We transparently show what we know and what we don't know, because we feel if you have that information, it's better than if you don't. Now, you can also see it's not just that the first day or the first 3 days are easy or confident in the forecast. In fact, it's not, because it's a tropical area. And that then later it gets a little bit more confident. So how do we do that? We actually run many, many models, and we compare what they say about a particular location. And we also give our users the ability to inspect that. All of what I'm showing you here is the free, publicly available website. And you can very quickly see that the models agree that it's going to rain here and rain here. What they don't agree on is how much it is, and when exactly the rain starts and stops. And there's more going down the page, explanations if you're interested in them. And there's another important bit that you can see here. We also verify all the time and share the verification. Now, here the distance to the next observation is 47 kilometers, and then the verification may be of limited use. But in some areas, it's much, much closer. And you can see and start getting a sense for where the forecast is good, where it's not so good, etc.
Yeah, Christoph, so not to interrupt you, it will be very good for our participants or our colleagues here to know how can we access the forecast. So you are an expert in that. You just delve straight into Ofinso. Someone else is not in Ofinso, but in another location. So
Yeah.
when the person visits either the website or the app, what should the person do for the person to get forecast
To get to
for his or her
the
location? Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Tell me a location that we should go to.
Okay, let's, if we can, one or two participants can just type in the chat their location, then it makes it easier for us to pick allocation, which is of relevance to our group here. So I'll suggest one or two participants just type in the name of the allocation in the chat. Then we use that for the access.
You have seen how it works in the location search there. You could also actually enter coordinates, etc. It's quite flexible. Please interrupt me when somebody makes a proposal, and then we'll look
Okay,
at
that's
that
fine. I
together.
can choose. Let's pick Ondo in Nigeria. Ondo, Ondo. Yeah, Ondo State. Ondo State. I think that's at the top. Yeah.
Nigeria, okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have a similar situation, only that not even on Tuesday, the forecast is a little bit more reliable. I mean, half reliability is sort of okay, but it's certainly less good than if we had all the bullseyes filled.
Okay.
Um,
So that is one. Let's also pick another location in Cote d'Ivoire. Let's use Man, or maybe Subri. So I think Subri is much easier. Soubre. No, Subri with an E.
ah,
Yeah, Subri.
okay. Yeah, similar situation. It's the tropics, but somehow on next Wednesday, the models agree a bit more.
So that point is highlighted on the agreement among models, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And if we go again and look at the multi-model as far as it covers Sobre, we can inspect this a little bit more. And we can also check what a short-term verification around there is, how far it is. That is actually a site where maybe there's an airport or so that can be directly
Yeah, that's
used.
true. I think that's
Yeah.
closer to San Pedro. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get an impression here of how good the forecast is. And you could see one very typical thing in the wind, that the peaks and troughs are not captured very well in the forecast. Well, they are captured reasonably well, but not exactly, just because the various models, of course, have integrate over an hour, and then the peaks are not necessarily captured.
All right. So, Christoph, still back to the first point, because the first objective is to how to guide people in accessing the weather forecast. So we've tried Offenso in Ghana, we've tried Ondo in Nigeria, we've tried Subri in Cote d'Ivoire. Let's pick a location in South America, say Para in Brazil.
Para, there may be, have I that
maybe
right? Yeah, Para.
Yeah, I think I can see somewhere down. If not, we use Bahia. I think
Bahia,
Bahia
okay.
is a bit unique.
Yeah. That's even that Bahia, San Salvador de Bahia, huh?
Yeah, in Brazil.
San Salvador
Okay.
de Bahia.
I think I saw it earlier.
Okay.
Bahia. Well, let's pick Bahia.
Yeah. Um, Actually, while we are looking, you see that we also
Yeah,
can
map. Exactly.
choose
So maybe
here.
let's draw the attention of participants as well. As you key in the location
Yeah.
with the coordinates, you clearly see the geolocation of the area that you are looking at. If it is the actual area you want, then the map is there for you to see.
Mhm. And we can
Yeah, I
also,
think that's the second point. Let's pick Salvador in Brazil. So
yeah,
Estado de Bahia. In the list, that's the second part. Exactly.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, Christoph,
Similar.
my question now will be, when I access this location, what does the info? Let's look at the first, yeah, exactly, the first image. What is it communicating?
It gives you for the next 7 days the initial, a little overview of the weather situation, whether it's going to rain, whether it's going to be thunderstorms, or just sun and so on. Maximum and minimum temperature for the full 24 hours. A picture of what the weather will be like at nighttime. Wind direction, wind speed, expected precipitation, and the hours of sunshine that you have there. And then it continues to actually go into the apparent temperatures, the one that you feel rather than the one that's measured. More exact values on the precipitation. And you see here, you can actually switch from a 3-hourly view to an hourly view. See the hourly detail, and you can also see what the rain patterns are around the location that you are. This is typical tropical. It starts raining and goes again. If you have frontal rains coming through, you sometimes see this in this little bullseye, which represents about a 30-kilometer radius around your location.
Right. Well, Christoph, to the left side, I can see 14-day weather. Does that mean the website also has access to some forecast beyond the 7-day period?
Yeah. We do also a 14-day weather, but of course that weather forecast is much less certain. So what we show right away is what's the mean temperature, for example, the mean max temperature and the mean lowest temperature, minimum temperature, and the band of uncertainty around it. In the tropics, again, that tends to be quite stable, always about the same band of uncertainty. But if you go to a northern hemisphere, so typically the band of uncertainty gets larger as you progress in time. It also shows the expected rain with an error bar for the min and maximum values of the rain that you can inspect here.
Okay, and the percentages there are probabilities, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for farmers, I believe it is very important for us to be aware that we need to have access to this information to plan our activities. For example, if there is, you can see on Saturday, there's 70% probability of rain, and we're looking at volumes up to about 10 millimeters of rain. Now, with this information, then you need to decide whether you have to apply fungicides or fertilizers or some insecticides at a point in time. Bearing in mind that if you are not aware that there is going to rain over in the next, today is Thursday, it's going to rain on Saturday, and on Friday you apply, and the rains that come in big amount or volumes, what it means is that the fungicides, the insecticides, and fertilizers that you have applied have gone to waste. So, Christoph, once again, beyond the 14-day, everyone, irrespective of your location, beyond the 7 days, irrespective of your location, you can access this information for 14 days as well. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right,
I
that's
was
fine.
just trying to look one that is a bit more interesting, because if it rains all the time, there's very little that you can really read from the forecast. Here, it's a little bit better. The Tuesday or the area around Tuesday looks much drier than the rest of the 2 weeks.
Right, right, right. So for us, the first objective is how to, facilitate access, or how to guide people on how to access the weather forecast. So from what Christoph has taken us through, the MeteoBlue website gives a much detailed information than the app, but then you can have access to both. Christoph, the question is, these days, people spend more time on their cell phones than on maybe on a browser. They prefer to be on an app more than on a browser. How does that play out on an app?
That is a bit difficult for me to show here.
Okay, on the
In
screen.
principle, it is Exactly the same. So let's, sorry, this screen you can see. I cannot show you the app, but I can show you what this looks like on a form factor like an app. You see, it also works actually on tablets or on larger smartphones to use the optimum space. So this is what it's going to look like uh, on a smaller screen, on a more narrow screen. But of course, you will probably have to scroll more horizontally. But other than that, everything that we looked at so far, or the location finder and so on, is all this is the same information.
Okay. Okay, I think that's fine. So on the app, if it comes up, maybe let's go to the top and quickly look at. So this gives us a daily forecast via the app. Okay, if one wants to drill down, what they have to do is to click on the day. Then it gives them how the forecast is distributed during the day. Okay, so this is a perfect visual.
And uh, the interesting thing then is also that's all on the right on the front, the first page, and you can find more detailed information also elsewhere on the page. But we can look. It says here radar for Ofinso. Ofinso does not have a radar, but what Meteo Blue does is to substitute satellite imagery or the rain information from satellites in areas where there is no radar available. So right now near Ofinso it's not raining, but if we can see the rain patterns around it, and we can actually animate the last 3 hours and
How
get
the race has evolved.
how it has evolved, and that typically gives you a good sense of where the cells tend to form, or where overall they're moving. So these ones are hardly moving at all. Um, and there's the first difference then. If you go to a subscription, if you have a subscription, then you can also do up to 24 hours back. And this can be very interesting to assess the weather situation. Um, in the tropics, it's always, of course, most of the time the same patterns. If you go further north, sometimes you have frontal rains, sometimes you have convective rains, and so on. And you see that in the history, and it's easier for you to assess.
Right, Christoph, there's a question from one of our participants that does the website has language functionalities? I
Yeah,
mean, in other languages. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Okay.
the set of languages is here. And you see, this is the languages. So certainly, il y a français.
France, right?
Um,
French.
yeah. So we can switch this to French, and then c'est la météo en français. Or we can go to a
Spanish. I mean, Latin America. We're looking at Spanish.
yep. Let's go to that. It's too many words. Yeah, Espanol. Yeah. So it's in very, very many languages. And actually, it's quite nice because what we do with our website is that we support 6 um, languages all the time. Uh, Spanish, French, English, German, Italian, and Portuguese. But then there are a lot of people from other countries who will help us with the translations. Sometimes, if you use a new piece of functionality, it's only explained in the 6 languages that we support all the time. And then a couple of weeks later, it typically also comes in the other languages.
Right. Christoph, thanks so much. And bearing in mind that some of our participants are extension workers, they work with farmer-based organizations who assist farmers to improve their productivity. They might not be the direct users of some of these forecast weather forecasts. What they do is to share that information with farmers for them to use it in their decision making. Now, today being the 16th of May, if you pick a 14-day forecast, does that mean when you, I mean, let's day forecast. Okay. So you have an activity somewhere towards the tail or the end of May. When you access the forecast today, does that mean that is it? You just use whatever you have picked today, or there's the need for you to routinely look at it as the day approaches so as to enhance the accuracy of the forecast?
Yeah, certainly to enhance your understanding.
Your understanding, right?
Um, and it's an example that we often show. You see here a forecast that was looked at different times. And you can see how, for example, the Sunday here develops. So there is rain on Sunday all the time, but first it was a bit less, then it's a bit more. And then in between was rain on, that's probably Tuesday, but that disappeared again. And first, no rain was predicted for Monday, but it did appear just one day before. So looking at it regularly and also, of course, looking out of the window and experiencing it over time gives you a very good appreciation of how to work with the models. And maybe I can point to one experience that we have. It's very typical for what we observe,
So
which
maybe
is
to give an introduction, to
Mhm.
show that the Meteo Blue has applied these solutions in an agricultural landscape. And the Bangladesh example is a very, very good example that can easily be put side by side for cocoa farmers. Now, what the Bangladesh farmers do is to access these weather forecasts regularly before taking
Exactly.
decision on their farming activities. So, Christoph, it will be very good for our participants to know what the Bangladeshi project was and why it was a success.
Yeah. So it was a relatively small project carried out by a Dutch NGO and their Bangladeshi partners and Bangladeshi PhD students. And it was very interesting what they reported. And the first thing that struck me was that the farmers said the rain forecast is 95% accurate, which we know is not, it's not possible. If you measure it, um, nobody can do in a sustained way a 95% rain forecast accuracy in the tropics. Uh, so we dug into where this came from, and it's really two things. Number one, farmers used the forecast, which they hadn't done before. Before they had relied on rules, and those rules didn't apply anymore. And the second was that they used it regularly, as we just discussed. And what then happened was that they actually developed an understanding of how the model forecast was different from what they experienced locally. And there was a certain systematic in it. For example, they found that probability of rain was a very good indicator to know in the morning whether in the evening it would rain or not. And the 95% accuracy that they perceive, maybe it's a bit less, but it's the forecast that they made based with these tools. So they actually were 95% accurate, not Meteo Blue. They were because they used it regularly and tied it to their decisions. And that then, the 95%, you can discuss whether that is 95 or 80 or something. But this year, that's not a number to be discussed. They know it's about a quarter that they save on fertilizer
Right.
costs. And this is just for fertilizer. Of course, there's many, many other decisions that a farmer has to take, when to intervene, when to do certain operations, and so on.
Well, Christoph, thanks so much. For us within the cocoa landscape, labor and agri input cost constitutes nearly 60 to 70% of the total cost of production. So if only on fertilizers you can save 25% of your resources, then that is a very, very good way of improving productivity. Now it goes beyond just saving the cost on fertilizers, but it has to do with the labor allocation as well, because for some farmers, they have to pay labor or they have to pay people to apply fertilizers, to spray their farms against pests and diseases, and to perform a lot of other activities. Now, if farmers with access to these weather forecasts or weather information can enhance their own forecast and inform their decision making, then this implies that there is a lot of savings that farmers can make if they have access to this information.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely correct. And because it's so important, we do additional forms. This was almost like what you have seen so far is almost like a consumer website. But if you have to uh, dig deeper into it, as farmers have to do, and I'll switch this back to English. Um, for example, you start looking at meteograms on which you see the development of certain parameters over a period of time. The top panel here is temperature. Then the next is precipitation and showers. So very typical for the tropics, mostly showers. You also get an indication of the cloud cover, um, which of course can also play a role for your planning. And you can see the cloud cover at different altitudes. Clearly, there are two layers. Very high cloud, actually quite massive height, also typical for the tropics. In Europe, we see that very, very rarely. And wind speed and wind gusts and wind direction. Now,
Christoph, if I can quickly ask, how did the farmers in Bangladesh, maybe with this having this meteogram on display, let's understand what does the top part of the charts, what is it communicating? I mean, looking at the period and the peak and trough, then the second one and the third one. Then you give us a guide on how the farmers in Bangladesh use this within their ecosystem or
yeah,
landscape, I should say.
yeah. So basically, you realize this is the current date, the current hour. Each of these forecasts, when I click something, it's produced exactly at that point. So it's always taking the newest information, be it from nearby weather stations, be it from radar, if it's available, or satellite imagery. Always uses the newest information. And what you can see here, so number one, temperatures are going to be roughly the same. It's getting a bit warmer towards the end of the week. Each of the days has uh, after around lunchtime, a bit after lunchtime, well, in the afternoon, not surprisingly, um, thunderstorms or lightning activity. You can see.
So this Christoph, no, sorry to interrupt. The first part
Mhm,
tries to show daytime and nighttime temperature swings, if I'm correct.
mhm. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If you look at the lower set of numbers here, you see the 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock p.m. um, hours and the change of day. So this is Thursday and Friday and so on. Um, and you see, yeah, here it's temperature. Here actually you have an indication that there may be a little bit of ground fog. um, which you can also see in partially in the lower cloud. It it takes a bit to look at these diagrams and understand them, and that's why in Bangladesh this NGO did training for the farmers, which they picked up very quickly. But once you have it, it's actually quite quick to check, is it the same? Is the forecast the same as I was expecting from yesterday? Has something changed, or in which way it has changed, and so on.
Right. So the recommendation or one of the lessons we can learn from the Bangladeshi example is that farmer-based organizations or extension officers working with farmers, it will be very helpful for them to have it, then guide the farmers or train farmers on how to interpret it. Some
Yeah.
farmers, I mean, there's a question in the chat box that some farmers might not be able to access it because they do not have smartphones. They have just normal phones with USSD. So it will be the responsibility, or it will be a favor done by extension agents to print out or show these meteograms on a device or on a board so that farmers can see it. I mean, for farmers, especially in Ghana, one platform that I think they can use is the community radio stations. So if an officer has access to this on his phone or on his on a computer, then he can take that responsibility on a weekly basis to give an interpretation or some information about these forecasts to farmers. The advantage is that farmers can easily use this evolution of temperature and precipitation to even plan simple activities like drying. I mean, if a farmer is going to town, going to a different village, and he knows that it's going to rain from this time, then he knows how many hours do I put my cocoa beans out there for drying, coupled with a lot of other activities such as fertilizer and agrochemical application. Christoph, there's a question about if we can delve on the probabilities. So we look at one of the chart that has the precipitation probabilities, so that they have, I think for West Africa, because we are in the rainy season. It's in May now, so we just approaching the peak of the rainy season in June. It will be very interesting for participants to have an appreciation of that and know how they can make some relevance of it now.
Yeah. So rain probability in the tropics and rain forecast in the tropics is one of the most difficult parameters to forecast. And due to the high locality of showers, etc. So from the forecast, you can see trends, and you can see, is it going to be really heavy if it comes, or is it going to be lighter? Is it going to be more like a sprinkle, or is it going to be more like water bombs dropping? That's also one of the reasons why it is so interesting to look at the rain patterns even on the satellite image, which is not giving the rain very reliable. It gives heavy rain reliably, but not light rains. And again, there is no hard and fast rule that you always apply. There is gaining experience with what the weather models tell you, and what this then plays out like in the area where you are. One advantage of MeteorBlue is, and the approach that MeteorBlue takes, is that it takes many different models together and learns over time which models work well in which situations. So we have actually analyzed that, and we can, I'll quickly show the diagram. And we have compared it with other sources of rain forecasts or hindcasts that are available. And this chirps 2 here that you see, that is a satellite image. And what you can see here in this block is light rain. In this block is intermediate rain. And here it's heavy rain. And for this particular measure, probability of this detection or for the height skill score. I cannot go into discussing what it
Yeah,
is, but
I think it's
basically,
getting a bit
yeah,
technical for
yeah.
a lot of
I,
people.
I
Yeah.
just want to point out um, a higher number is better. One would be really good, right? So the best one that we see is actually something that is calculated after the fact, and it doesn't quite reach uh, uh, point 5, right? So
Right.
if, yeah, just to cut it short, it is a difficult parameter to forecast. We are working all the time on improving that. But although it is not a perfect forecast, it's a much better forecast than not knowing anything.
Right. Right.
And by using it regularly, you will become like the farmers in
Bangladesh
Bangladesh.
example.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I think there was one of the meteograms had this precipitation bar. It looks like a bar chart or histogram, kind of with some lines.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe it was whether for the 14th day. I don't know.
This here?
Not
Oh,
this one.
no, with the arrow bars. Okay, yeah.
With the error bars,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And it
This one
has some
here.
probabilities. Maybe let's touch on that. I believe now most of us know how to access it via the website and the app.
Mhm.
The important thing now is for them to understand what is it communicating, and hence that question on the precipitation probabilities.
Yeah. So the way this is calculated is, again, that one looks at several models, or that one uses slightly different parameters in the models to appreciate how different the forecast could come out. Um, in blue is what is the median of all these models. If you take them all together and average them, sort of, you
So
get
that's the
this.
median volume of precipitation, if I'm
Uh,
correct.
Correct.
Exactly.
Um, Say it's a precipitation in millimeters.
Millimeters, right.
Yeah. So, those are good rains, but they're not heavy rains.
Right, right. Christoph,
And
beneath
yeah,
it, I can see something save image. Does that mean that someone can save the image and share with other colleagues?
yeah, you can just download it, um,
Right,
and share it exactly.
right. Okay. Well, thank you. If you're touching on a point, that's fine. If not, you did mention, so now we've looked at the short term, that is 7 day to 14-day forecast. There are
Mhm.
certain activities for cocoa which transcend beyond that period. A farmer might want to know, okay, what will be the forecast in the next 1 month, in the next 3 months, or in the next 6 months, even though the farther it goes, the less accurate it could be. So I would love you to touch on that point before coming to a question on you've taken us through the free version, which has a lot of information also.
All
What
we
is a
did,
subscription
Mhm.
version as well?
Okay, all we did so far is the free version. So you can start with this tomorrow, just using it, right? There's no other cost associated with it. Um, so here we are talking about a 6 month forecast, where the anomalies are being described. And that means this forecast says, is it more than usual? Is it less than usual? Or is it about that what is usual? Again, these are a number. Each colored line is a different model coming from a different organization. So, for example, from the European weather forecaster, from the US forecast, from the Germans, the British, the Italians, the French, and the Japanese. And you can see when it comes to rain, whether it's more or less, the Italians and the German Weather Service have exactly the opposite ideas. Quite a bit less, the Germans, quite a bit more, uh, uh, the Italians. Now, you might think, well, now they are completely contradicting. What good is this forecast, right? The thing is, it shows you what the trend is, and it shows you how big the uncertainty is. So if you knew that it's completely reliable because all these models are very, very close to each other, um, then you could probably say, okay, I don't have to prepare quite as much. But if you see that in June they cannot agree at all, you basically have to be prepared for too little rain as well as for too much rain.
Too much rain.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And the thing is, you don't have to be prepared all the time for that. It's really June. If you look at this year, it's June that has that problem. In April, it hasn't
There
been
seemed to
so
be
much
some
of
high
that.
level of convergence or
Yeah, yeah,
agreement.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And what this then shows the maps, there you see the point that you are interested in. The maps show the mean, and that has the tendency to cancel out these extremes. So whatever you see as a indication in the mean, you can put a little bit more stake on. But again, it is a seasonal forecast. The seasonal forecast can tell you something month to month, not Thursday afternoon on the 5th of July. Um, and it can give you an idea of where this is going and how much to expect. But that's basically it that it can give you. Then if you have a lot of data, if you have a lot of different sites around the world, um, if you have to know where do I prioritize, or of course the off-takers and the buyers are interested, where can I expect a better crop, then this is also information that is very important. And the more correct it can be gotten, the better it is, the more value is created for the user of that information.
Well, thank you, Christoph. There's a question that for farmers to access this or for extension officers to access this at different locations, do their location on the location access on their smartphones be enabled before they can get that forecast?
No, it is. This is all we discussed so far is a free forecast. It's a free service that MeteoBlue provides, and MeteoBlue can provide it for two reasons. The first reason is that MeteoBlue uses quite a bit of open data and mixes it with their own data and their own processes and models that MeteoBlue computes. Um, the second is, of course, that we can display advertisements on there, and that finances a part of the website. And last but not least, and actually our primary motive is, as a very small company starting somewhere from a university in Switzerland, we had to prove to the world that we are good. And that's why we make so much available for people to see themselves, to use it, to utilize it. And we then have value-added products where we charge a fee.
Right. So if I got the question correct, if someone is in Ondo or in Offenso with a smartphone, they don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to enable their location before they can access the app.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. They just have to type it in.
If they enable the location, then they can use it. Um, but otherwise, they just type in the
The name of the location.
yeah, exactly.
Right. I think I can easily, what's the name, relate to that. A few days ago, a colleague in Accra asked me to get him forecast for the next weekend because he's going to have a birthday party for his daughter. I'm sitting in London, but all I did
Yeah,
was to go online, even on my phone, hidden the location and shared the screenshot with
so
him.
Fuad, you get those requests as well.
I do on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Sometimes I feel like, well, since MeteoBlue is not charging me for that, I don't have to charge it. But
yeah,
it's time that I have to use for that purpose.
yeah.
Eva, Christopher, a quick question I want to ask again is, how would farmers or farmer-based organization or extension offices combine the use of the seasonal forecast with the short-term forecast?
So first of all, um, if you look at the 14-day weather, that is already a combination because the first 7 days are actually derived from our own multimodal ensemble. And you have seen these graphs, many, many curves earlier today. And then after the first week, it goes to a different model family that runs for a longer period. Um, to go from one to the next it can be done in several ways. Number one, you can just switch between these panels. If you go, and now I have to switch to a paid product where you need a subscription. You see here, I'm logged in as myself, and that means the web application knows I have subscribed. If you go in here and look at the same metagram, you can, for example, see it for 7 days out. So it's a longer period. Or more importantly, maybe for a farmer, is that we also have meteograms that show additional information, specifically relative humidity, as this curve here, and evapotranspiration and the AT0 evapotranspiration. And you can see quantitatively how much it is expected to be. And you see very nicely that as the relative humidity goes down, the evapotranspiration goes up,
Transpiration is higher. Right,
etc.
right.
And then there are things like taking into account the rain, taking into account the relative humidity, taking into account the wind speed. What are times where you can easily apply or where you can apply sprayed fungicides or whatever you want to apply, and when you shouldn't? So in this particular period right now, again for Afinzo, um, there is not really a good time to do it. There are just less bad times uh, to do it, but of course that may change depending on the weather situation.
Right, right. So this is additional information when you have the Point Plus or subscription
Yeah,
version. There was a question in the chat about whether all the information is subscription based or there is a portion of it which is subscription based. But I believe that even though there's a lot of information on the site and on the app which are free, those additional information, especially on spray window and evapotranspiration, is very, very important when you want to be efficient in your activities. So, Christoph, maybe you could touch again on the spraying window. What does it mean if it is yellow, and what does it mean if it is red, so that our participants become aware of what it means exactly?
it goes from suitable to unsuitable.
Okay, so there's a legend there, right?
There is a legend here. And notably, there's no suitable times really in this period. But then at least you try to stay away from the red
The red period.
periods. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. Okay, thanks so much. So, Christoph, and the next question would be, okay, if the subscription-based product, how do I access it? Is it that you go on the website, you enter your details on the subscription part?
Yeah. For example, if you notice that you want to access something that does require a subscription, then you are told. You can also directly navigate there, but that says it. This is actually a live example, so you can still see whether it works or not. You see, this is today, the forecast, but you cannot go away from Basel. You cannot switch to a different location. And actually, in Basel, we have a couple of more suitable spraying windows, as you can
Windows.
see. Uh, but then, if you learn more, or you go directly to Point Plus here, then you see it's explained what you can get for this. There's
Get
many,
right.
many, many additional things that we were not able to touch upon. Um, and you go to try it for free and start your 14 days trial now. And then it wants a login, and you may have to register first. The registration itself is free. So you could register and then stop. And that has a few, if you're registered, let you do remembers what you were looking at last, what your favorites are, and things like that. So to register, it's a simple process. I don't think I should go through it now.
Oh, okay. That's
It's
at least
it's
if
yeah,
people know where it is.
yeah.
Maybe as a favor you could do to us towards the end,
Mhm.
people can share their emails, or maybe we'll put a link to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Point
please, yeah.
Plus, then
Yeah,
they can access for the trial version. There is a
yeah.
question that can this tool be used to forecast groundwater supplies, which could be used in the dry periods to irrigate cocoa?
Um, in a so as a paid service in a limited way. And what we do is we compute a water balance based on the rainfall, but we don't know anything about the specifics of the soil. We don't know anything about groundwater flows, etc. So we can work, and we do work with companies that specialize in that, because they need to anticipate the rate at which the groundwater reservoirs are being refilled, and we can help there. And if there's deeper interest in that, I'm very happy to show offline or in some suitable context what we do there with the water balance, because that is something that can also be improved with a little bit of local information um, that customers can supply. And that will not be Point Plus. That's another product, and to just use it as is a certain fee, and then there would be a real commercial agreement if data would flow both directions to improve the forecast.
Right. Thanks, Christoph. I think there's another question about, well, I think it's a bit generic, because the question is, knowing that farmers do not use advanced phones, what sort of phones are farmers supposed to use to get access to the app? Well, my answer would be any smartphone, not necessarily advanced, that has a Google Play Store or an iOS, so that you can download any other app. It also gives you access to the Meteo Blue app. Christoph,
Yeah,
I hope I'm correct on that.
yeah, certainly. Yeah, that's correct. You do need a smartphone. We do not issue like SMSs and so on. And the reason is twofold. Um, most it is very difficult to convey all this information in a little text message, specifically to then appreciate, oh, it's probably this much, but it could be a bit more or a bit less. It becomes very, very tedious to read. In the text message-based systems, you really have to have somebody who knows what to recommend to a farmer and to edit that and send it out. It's just
Right.
to provide it in such a condensed form. Um, you Up to now you have to have people involved. Maybe as artificial intelligence and so on gets more and more developed, it will become possible to also automate this more. In our experience to date, we automate a lot, right? We try to mimic what the farmers in Bangladesh are doing. Um, and we are quite successful on many parameters, not on convective rain because it's so local. Uh, yeah, but bottom line, it is very difficult to create a valuable SMS because it needs to be so specific to the farmer to say, okay, yeah, yes or no. And
Well, Christoph, I think the visuals are much better. People really appreciate pictures, so the farmers can easily have an appreciation of how it looks. AI with a text message could bring a condensed information which could be easily misinterpreted. Yeah. So my next question will be, now we've seen how the forecast. So as participants or people working with farmers, we know how to access the information via a web browser, as well as via our smartphones. Again, we've gone through how what that means. If you access a meteogram or a chart, what does it mean? Now the next bit will be to ask the question to Metro Blue: how do you generate this forecast? Bearing in mind that in tropical areas, for example, you definitely need some observations, as in some weather stations locally or on the ground, before you are able to generate very good forecasts.
Yeah. So this now becomes quite technical, but I want to point out a few elements in it. First of all, here you can see how this works in a partnership. Um, the partners are the public institutions, which are here in gray, and you may recognize some of them, like the UK Met Office or the ECMWF, the European Meteorological Office, and so on. Or NOAA and NCEP, of course, are very, very active, as is the
So if it
German
is
Weather
Ghana,
Service.
we're looking at the Ghana Meteorological Service. If it's Nigeria, we're looking at Nigeria Meteorological Service and IMET. Right.
So what we would like really is to have their contributions in the system, because it would be locally better and advanced information, but at the same time it would benefit from the information that is available globally. So that's the public part. And then basically weather stations, satellite data, and so on are all collected in the global observing system and then put together into a snapshot of the atmosphere. And that snapshot is used to initialize models. And these models will then calculate a forecast over 3, 7, 15 or so days. And MeteoBlue will take all these forecasts, including MeteoBlue's own forecasts, compare them with station data, and learn in this way of how to tweak the forecast for a particular location. And we can measure how, for example, the temperature accuracy, the forecast of the temperature accuracy improves, or the forecast accuracy for precipitation improves, as we compare single individual models with the collection of all the models, with the learning from local weather stations. We see the temperature error goes down all the time, and it looks a little, but by the nature of the measurement is such that it's actually a significant improvement. And you can also see that it's very difficult, or that we have not been able so far, to improve the local rain forecast by learning. That's a bit the holy grail. And if you read about Google and other companies who do all these artificial intelligence forecasts, they are nowhere near to be able to do this. In fact, they are not near being able to do this here. They are sitting in this area here.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to the input part, the WMO weather stations. Now, if you take West Africa, which is the largest cocoa producing region in the world, are there some ground stations that feed into your data?
Yeah, and we work with partners there. In fact, I chose Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana as examples of where
So is this the very ground stations, if I'm correct?
those are, to a large degree, very ground stations. There are others as well. And you might, uh, this is actually our own internal quality control. And blue means that the stations deliver data without interruption, and red means station has stopped. So blue is, in terms of coverage, quite good, and green is not so good, but it could also be some stations only deliver every 3 hours. And then, of course, they will have a lower coverage, although they are very reliable. So this is not to put any of these stations on the spot, may have completely different reasons.
Objectives, right?
But I want to demonstrate to you or illustrate to you um, that we take the information on board, that we quality control it, and then feed it into our post-processing.
Right. I mean, having highlighted on partnership, there's a question from a participant asking that does MeteoBlue has partnership with GMET? If not, what role is GMET going to play in this regard? Is there any role for the Ghana Meteorological Agency? Yeah.
Yeah, we are very interested in this, and on various personal on a personal level, we have spoken about possibilities to do that. So there would certainly be value for the end user and for everybody participating in this value chain, if the collaboration there should be improved or could be improved. And specifically, um, here it's, on the one hand, we have these partners, and they're typically coming from the commercial world, and we have the established WMO channels, but there is really a middle ground in this partnership to just say, okay, let's take the models or the expertise and so on that we have locally and feed that into this open chain, so that the information becomes available and easy to consume at the back end. Because the problem is always to get the entire chain going. You may have a perfect model, but nobody can look at it. Or people can look at your forecast, but the input is not good. So one has to
Right.
pull these things together, and then one can make a real difference. And certainly MeteoBlue is very interested and is practicing this in many countries, uh, or with many private companies, and with open data and things that are already open access. And we are very interested in extending this further.
Right. Yeah. So Douglas, MeteoBlue is open for partnership. If you have any access, or if we are with the Ghana Met, or anyone from any producing country that has some network at the national meteorological agencies or department, then MeteoBlue is definitely ready to partner to
Yeah.
grant them access to their tools, so that we can all improve the accuracy of the forecast. Now, Christoph, I believe that beyond being farmers or working with farmers, there are a lot of people who live in cities. So, for example, if someone is living in London, there's a question that recently the flooding that happened in Dubai, was this something forecastable? Is it something that people living in city or city forecast and city weather? Is it something that the Meteo Blue platform or information ecosystem provide some of these services or solutions, I should say?
So we are working towards it, because in cities, the issue is to localize where the rain is coming down and what the drainage patterns are, and where the floodwaters are being channeled to. Um, that requires really an interaction of uh, people who have models of the city,
Right.
with hydrologists and the weather input.
Right.
And we're working actively on it. We have been successful to do this for temperature, but temperature is a simpler parameter than
Than
precipitation.
precipitation.
So in principle, yes. Um, but what I've shown you so far are ready-made products that work reliably, and we know exactly how well they work, and we know exactly their limitations. In the area of urban flooding, we are still on the path of improving what we can do there.
Well, so the answer is there are different variables for you to have to forecast flood. The drainage system is very, very important. So you can provide forecasts with the rain or precipitation, but the understanding of the local system is very, very important. And
Yeah,
until you
yeah.
partner or the local agencies provide this information, too much rains in a very good drainage system doesn't result in flood. It is when you know the drainage system that is when you know whether there will be flooding or not.
Yeah, it's
Christopher, I remember.
also, if I
Yeah.
if I can expand a little bit on it, it's also, actually where your sidewalks are, if there are sidewalks in the city, it really is elevation differences of 10 centimeters that play a role there. But these data sets become more and more available. And one of the partner companies we work with in Italy, um, Sistema, for example, they develop methods to do that, and we work with them to be able to localize rainfall better.
Right. Thanks so much, Christopher. I think I've exhausted most of the questions. I believe there was a slide about the value chain that could be interesting for us to look at as well. If there are, then maybe the next bit I will ask also has to do with the with sub-seasonal forecast. Then maybe we do a quick
Yeah,
wrap up.
yeah. Um, this is a commercial product, um, and it is very valuable in that it also forecasts anomalies, like what we had seen in the seasonal forecast, but it's limited to 6 weeks and does a weekly, not a monthly forecast. And through intricate processing, it's calibrated and reaches a quite high level of fidelity, or you can rely on it quite well. I mean, in fact, a lot of traders or energy companies do rely on it. It comes from a partner company, the World Climate Service. And what it's another example of how in partnership you can actually create more value
More value,
because
right?
because through the Meteo Blue system, you are able, or our customers are able to uh, access individual locations very easily. You have seen how quickly the forecast is being put out or on a smartphone or so. We can do basically the same thing for this class of forecast, um, but it is not a free product.
Right, thank you. I guess you put the value chain image on the screen. Maybe let's.
Yeah,
And this chart is quite important to look at as well. Yes.
this one here.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we looked at it in the beginning, if you remember, also in the session here, and discussed how as you regularly inspect the forecast, sorry, um, from the development and the amount of change that you see from forecast to forecast, you can have a sense of the reliability of the forecast. So when you can start relying on it, or how long you still have to keep your options open.
Right. So in effect, if I access this for a 14-day period, what I have to do is that maybe in every 3 days, it is important for me to go back and access it again to check whether it is in line with the initial
Yeah,
forecast, but how quick it is
yeah,
departing from it. And I believe this is very, very important for us as people who work with with farmers and farmer-based organizations. So as when you give an information, especially when you are communicating to the local people, you basically become a weather wizard or a witch. So if you don't say the right thing, you are giving them information, let them understand that it is forecast, it has some probabilities. The closer it gets to the period, the higher the probability. And with this information, you'll not be labeled as a liar for giving wrong forecast, but someone who is providing information for farmers to take a decision.
Yeah, that is a very important aspect of it, that people need to understand, and you have to be upfront about it. This is a forecast, right? And there's this saying, forecasts are difficult, specifically when they are about the future. But it's better than not having the information.
All right. Well, I think that has been well established. Just for you to think that, because for the past 30 years, the heavy rains drop in May or June, so all your farm decisions is going to be based on that. But the climate is changing, and weather patterns are fast changing. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, there were more rains, specifically with Ghana. There were more rains in October, November than was in June, July. Meanwhile, June, July should be the highest rainfall period. Now, what it means is that if you take farm decisions based on traditional or old knowledge, then there will be a lot of wastages. There could be high incidence of pests and diseases. So it is important for you to have access to weather information to be able to take very good decisions. Now, let's use an example of the classical case of what happened in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire the current cocoa season. Blackpod was quite pervasive in Ghana as well as in Cote d'Ivoire. Now, if you check the observed rainfall from May to July, you realize that it was almost 200% above the norm or the above average for the period. Now, if you check forecasts regularly, what it means is that if in May you check that, okay, in the next 14 days, the rains are going to be beyond this threshold and the probabilities are quite higher, what it means is that you need to protect your pods, your cocoa, because that is your money. And what it means is that you have to then quickly make a decision to buy fungicides to apply on your farm. So that is why having access to information, I mean, we are in the age of information. Information is wealth. So make use of this information available to make informed decisions so that you can protect your farm against pests and diseases, improve your yield, and improve your profitability as well. I think it would be also good to cite the example of pruning, how this will be used for pruning purposes. For example, if you have a forecast that temperatures are going to be low for a period of time, you know that the farm requires some very good aeration. So it is prudent for you to prune the farm so as to allow good flow of aeration in the farm. Again, if it's raining consistently for a period of time, it is important for you to do that so that there wouldn't be high moisture deposits in your farm for it to spare, pests and diseases like Blackpod. Chris, you are showing the value chain image. Maybe if we can look at that, we've got some few minutes to wrap up. I believe we've answered nearly all the questions that has come in.
Yeah, let me. So this is the value chain that you see in, if you are a bit familiar with weather forecasting, etc. It basically shows how from the basic infrastructure you arrive at value-adding services. And you have also seen that while MeteoBlue doesn't have its own basic infrastructure, it has access to it through the global observation system and partnerships, and can then do its modeling, forecasting, generate the products that you saw and deliver the services. It's an open chain. where we take in external information. The limited area forecast models would be, for example, something that GMAT potentially could provide. And what the processing can deliver as value is quality monitoring, because quality is very, very important to get good
right.
accuracy output, and so on. And I made this slide to show through the openness of the Meteo Blue value chain with its integration points, one can, in partnership, build products and service and deliver them that a single organization would have difficulties to achieve.
Right. I think you depicted it in a picture with some colleagues in Meteo Blue. So it would be good to see how what that really means. Yeah.
Yeah, we are a small company, tight-knit, proud of what we are doing. And this was last year we did a team building exercise. And it struck me that what we did there really was sort of trying to create a value chain. So I chose this particular image to share with you, point out maybe our CEO, and point out, oops, that while the founders of the company are quite senior, it's a very young company if you see all our people here. So really, thank you to them because they do very good work.
Right. Christoph, is there any point that that we have missed that you think is very important to bring up? I think we started at 40 minutes past the hour. So in the next 9 minutes, that takes us to an hour 30 minutes, and I believe that is really a good depth of information that we have looked at. And then we just do a quick wrap up of the key takeaways and how people can start, or how participants can start using the tool, and also subscribing for the free trial of the Point Plus as well as the free version.
Yeah. So first of all, if there are more questions or any thing that you are interested in, this is myself as the contact, and I've given you our support email because that's the entry into Meteo Blue, and then we look at that. So if you write to me, it'll come to me, and if somebody else is better suited to answer the question, it will go to that person. So you have seen the people there. A quarter of these people that you saw are people who look after customers. Meteo Blue is trying hard and is quite proud of good user support. When we go to the locations, and I think Fuad will share the slide set with participants. I mean, there are
definitely.
Many links in there. And there is also the screen with, if you want to get access to Point Plus, how you get it. There are other subscription products on there. It should work quite well. We try hard to make it easy for our customers. If there's any issue, please reach out to us and we'll make sure that you can achieve what you want to achieve.
Right, thank you, Christoph. So maybe in trying to summarize, we've looked at three key areas. One, how to access the weather forecast. I mean, we tried with various locations in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, and in Brazil. Now, what that communicates is that irrespective of where you are, you can, as long as you have internet access, you can have access to weather forecast. There could be seven-day forecast, there could be 14-day forecast, and you can use that for your decision making. The next step we have done is to try explain what do the visuals mean. I mean, I have to step back briefly. Beyond the 14 days, we've looked at the seasonal forecast, which looks at a 3 months to 6 month period. Then we have the sub-seasonal forecast, which is up to a 3 month period, if I'm correct, Christoph.
Subseason is up to 6 weeks. Yeah.
Up to 6 weeks, exactly. So up to 6 weeks. So the seasonal is up to 3 months, correct?
Even up to 6. But of course, it gets more and more difficult the longer the forecast period is.
All right. So you've got access to these resources up to a 6 month period, down to 3 month period, down to 6 weeks period, which is the sub-seasonal forecast, and down to more of a short-term forecast, that is 14 days, 7 days, and even in some time now forecast. So living in London, definitely there are times every morning you have to check the weather forecast, or every Monday you have to check the weather forecast for the rest of the week, so as to plan your activities. Now, the second bit has to do with how do you interpret the data that has been accessed. So that is where we looked at what the first charts or the first visual implies, looking at temperature evolution, nighttime temperature, daytime temperature, the minimum and the maximum temperatures. Then we looked at precipitation, i.e. what we usually interpret as rainfall. What is the rainfall evolution? Which part of the day are we expecting more rains? And what is the probability? Then thirdly, with this information, what do you use that information for? How do you implement that information in your daily farm decisions? How do you utilize that information, number one, on your drying activities? Without having information on weather forecast or precipitation, and you put your cocoa beans out on the dry and unfortunately step out, what it means is that by the time you return, it's been rained on. The next bit is, in order to save some resources on fertilizers, fungicides, and insecticide or general pesticide, how do you utilize the information for that purpose? It is very important for you to have a view of what the weather would look like, because the weather is the most important yet easily overlooked variable as far as agriculture is concerned, and most importantly, cocoa. So it is very important that with this information, you know how to use that for your decision making. How do I interpret the weather for fertilizer application so that you don't waste, you use 20-30% of your money to buy fertilizers, you apply it on the farm, in the next day or two, there's heavy rains and it washes it away. If you have access to this information, what you do with the forecast is that, okay, I plan applying fertilizers on Friday or on Saturday, but now with the weather forecast, it is telling me, or it is giving me indication that there's 90% probability that it's going to rain in the next 24 hours. So I hold on applying the fertilizers, or I hold on applying fungicides. Because if you don't, and in the absence of having this information, what it means is that all that fertilizers and agri input that you have applied on your farm goes to waste, beyond the money that you have used, but again, the labor allocation that you have used in doing that. In the end, the biggest effect is that if there's pests and diseases, if there's inefficiency in your application of this pesticide, it affects your output, it affects your profit. It is in our interest to make sure that we give you this information so that you tool yourself, or you retool yourself on how to minimize the effects of pests and diseases on your cocoa, so that you can generate more yield as well as income and profit. So Christoph, I'll say a big thank you to you for making time, and to the Meteo Blue family as well, to Carl and the team for making time to share with us this very, very important information. So our participants who joined us from across different locations, we thank you for making time to join us this afternoon. We believe that the information shared has been very, very useful to you. And the team here at Ghana Cocoa Marketing Company, with Akuya, with Muftau from World Cocoa Farmers Symposium, we really appreciate the platform you've given us and the opportunity to discuss this thing with you. My big takeaway to us all is that it is when you use it and use it more that you become very much acquainted to it, so that you can use it easily. So our suggestion is that go download the app on your cell phones, share with your colleagues, go onto the website or browser, access that information, take a look at the meteorograms, take a look at the weather forecast, and try explain it with your colleagues. It is the more interaction you have with your colleagues, then it enhances your understanding. If you think that the information that you need is beyond what is available on the free meteorogram or free version, then the Point Plus or the subscription-based one is also available, which we have indicated. Use the trial version for the next few days. If you think there's some more value to be generated from the subscription base, then you can easily connect with the team at Meteo Blue to do that. So I'll say a big thank you, Christopher, once again for making time this afternoon. And thanks so much to you all. Until we meet again, bye-bye, and enjoy the rest of the week and an extended weekend. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.